Dixon is shaking slightly, not massively, but if he held his hand out, it would be shaking a little. He reaches into his pocket and takes out a cigarette and hurriedly brings it to his lips and then grabs his lighter and lights it as he is looking around the room, trying to take it in and calm his nerves.
And your cigarette takes an oddly long time to light. You can feel heat is coming from the flame, but far less than there should be, and the flame is lower than normal and gives off a bluish color.
This does not impress him, as it is working counterproductive to what he's trying to actually do.
But your cigarette will light. It just takes a little longer than you'd like.
And he grips the lighter hard as he puts it back into his coat.
Avad will mumble a short prayer before relaxing in a seat. Relax, boy.
Have I ever told you how much I dislike ghosts?
I believe a couple of times, yes, but the night is still young.
The hell does that mean?
You have much more to worry about.
Oh, I feel so much better now.
And Sammy, the bartender, is looking at you. He is clearly as confused as you are. This is not, you take it, something that normally happens in this establishment. But he has noticed that the two of you are also awake and is just looking at you. He seems maybe a little too afraid to come approach you, but he knows that you are there, and that is something.
Why does he have insomnia?
Would you like to ask him yourself?
I say, sir, I don't mean to bother you in such a unusual circumstance as we now find ourselves, but you do not appear to be as face down as your compatriots.
He walks from behind the bar over to your table, seemingly not in a mood to sort of call back and forth across the dining room. And you can tell as he approaches that he is shaking quite a bit. He is not enjoying whatever is going on here. And he says, I don't know what is happening here. Have you done something?
Oh, I've done many things in my life, but am I responsible for this? The answer, sir, is no.
He's glancing back and forth between the stairs that lead up and the outside door. And he turns to the two of you and says, I need to go. I need to go do something. Can you check on. Can you go upstairs?
I believe that is entirely possible, sir.
And he gives you a terse nod and runs out the door. Not the front door that you came in, but a back door you assume would lead behind the inn.
That is certainly not normal behavior. I am, however, a little concerned for the daughter.
I do not see what he would have to do so hurriedly in a time like this, but I am inclined to agree.
I think it's clear that he knows more than he's saying.
I think we knew that from the start now, didn't we?
Well, you are the man of God, and I can picture God sort of shrugging and agreeing with you, possibly. So the question, though, is do we follow him? Do we split up? Or do we just check on the girl?
What do you believe?
I believe I was asking you a question so that I didn't have to answer it.
About all your youthful spirit.
Oh, well, if it's youthful spirit, then I will check on the girl.
I suppose I will check on the old man then.
He'll go upstairs. He will get up. He will not touch anybody. He doesn't think they are necessarily contagious in a supernatural way, but as he doesn't know, he will go upstairs.
Okay, upstairs there is a hallway lined with doors. You assume they would lead to different rooms that one could rent in the inn. At the end of the hallway, however, there is a ladder coming down from the ceiling that you assume might lead to an attic.
He will climb and he will peer inside into the attic.
What you see is a room that is dusty and cluttered, except for the far end, which has been meticulously cleaned. Sheets have been hung from the ceiling like curtains, and from behind them, lanterns emit a ghostly blue light. A row of chairs sits before the sheet curtains, as if waiting for an audience.
Go up to the curtains. Not quietly, he's not stealthing.
And you see Sophia is indeed there. She is crouched next to a very sophisticated looking contraption. It has lanterns, clockwork mechanisms, paper figures on sticks, and different cloth backdrops. Everything seems to be connected by rails, and she is turning a crank, which makes everything move.
I must say, that is mightily creative. I do believe it is a shadow play, is it not?
And she looks up at you, and she looks much happier than she did when she was downstairs. She says, "A shadow theater. Yes, I've been wanting to put on a play, but well, no one ever answered my flyers. Would you watch?"
That was indeed why we came. We did indeed see your flyers.
So you'll watch the play?
I will watch, as you say, the play.
She has a large smile on her face and gestures for you to sit in one of the chairs while she makes small last minute adjustments.
Choose the most comfiest chair.
So you may sit in a chair, and she begins to turn the crank, which causes the figures, the lanterns, and the backdrops all to move. Clearly, it's been timed to go along with the script, which she is apparently reciting from memory, as you do not see her reading off of anything. And so begins the play. A young man wanders through Europe, seeing things few people are fortunate enough to witness. He dances with queens and visits Versailles and the Palais Royal. There, people perform his plays and praise his name, and life dances along like a dream. But the People's Revolution sweeps the land with grenades and fire, and those who were playing and singing end up dead by the side of the road. The young man flees the song of the guillotine. Our hero returns home to a city in the north. He walks through its gates without shoes, poor and mute. The house where he was born is burnt to ashes, and his family is missing. He kneels by the side of the road, begging for coin, and no one knows that his name was once sung in the palaces of Europe. Suddenly, he sees things no one else does, creatures creeping, flying, and crawling, as the invisibles reveal themselves to him. When he points them out to others, he is mocked and beaten. A man picks him up from the street and has him bathed and clothed. The man's name is Albert, and his mansion is a place of love and song. Our young hero performs his plays and sings to him for days and nights, and they eat fruit and drink wine. Albert introduces his friends. In the young man's dreams, they are all dancing together. But the dreams lie. And as she continues, her voice seems to change and somehow become deeper and angrier as she continues. It was you. You brought me here. You asked me to sit down and talk. We spoke of the future of the world. I have the right to refuse. You said so and smiled, and then you butchered me like a pig one hangs from the ceiling. You buried my body in unholy ground without priest or consecration. Now dreams are all I have left. I gaze out over the audience at the Palais Royal. I dance with a princess. I eat cake. I look into your eyes, Albert, and I let you take my dirty hand. You summon me to Puri's Inn. You make me a villainous proposition, and I decline. You cut me up. I scream, not wanting to die. At last, you are back. Welcome. And the lights go out.
He will reach into his pocket and feel around for the lighter and then try to light it, so even if it's still the faint blue, he's hoping there will be at least some light.
And you can light it. It is faint and blue, and you see Sophia standing there beside her shadow theater, and she looks terrified. And she is sort of softly sobbing. You do not think that this is exactly how she thought that things would play out, but before you can move towards her to comfort her or question her, a shadow rises up from behind her shadow theater and towers over you. It looks like a rotted corpse with sharp teeth and claws. The entire building begins to shake as though hit by an earthquake, but stills as the creature whispers a single word which echoes the ending of her play. Welcome. Then it howls and launches itself at you. Please make a fear test. You need 2 successes. For a moment, you think that the creature is about to strike you as it lunges at you, but instead it passes straight through you, and you see it head down the ladder that you had come up.
And Dixon had leapt back when it came at him and hit the rear wall as he tried to put some distance between it. Off balance, he slid to the ground, and he does not follow it yet, as he is trying to get his bearings mentally. He is struggling with feeling hopeless and angry at his fear.
So if you are following Sammy, you see that he has headed to a collapsed sort of outbuilding in the garden of the inn. It looks as though it could have been some sort of greenhouse, perhaps, but it has fallen into disrepair a long time ago. And he is standing in the pouring rain, looking at this building and screaming what you know to be the name of his dead wife.
This is not going to end well.
Says the priest.
He will go investigate. She cannot answer you.
He looks at you with wide, frightened eyes and does not really respond. He seems confused.
What's with the look?
He has stopped screaming. He's looking at you almost as though he's in a daze, and he turns around and begins walking back into the inn.
I would like to go to where he was standing. Is there anything over there?
He was standing in front of what looks like a collapsed greenhouse. You don't really see anything of note.
I will follow him back into the inn.
All right, he is behind the bar, muttering to himself and rummaging through some drawers.
Is he just like ignoring my existence?
He does seem to be.
Then I will go to the last place I saw my foreign friend, the attic.
All right, you're heading to the attic?
Well, I guess upstairs. I don't know about the attic yet.
All right, you head upstairs. You see the same thing, doors lining the hallway, which presumably lead to guest rooms, and a ladder at the end of the hallway.
And I will go up the ladder.
You see Dixon standing with a lighter, which is currently the only source of light in this room, and it seems to be wavering, perhaps a fair bit. And you can just sort of see farther into the room Sophia crouched, looking terrified.
What did I miss?
Dixon's hand snaps up with the revolver aimed at you before he sees it's you, and he lowers it.
We're gonna hurt somebody with that thing.
He drops the cigarette that is now almost burnt out onto the table. There is something entirely unholy in this establishment.
I think that was made clear from everybody passing out.
Well, it's not just that, my learned friend. And he puts the revolver back into his pocket. A ghoulie, easily 6 feet wide, did come from this shadow play, leaping forth, all teeth and terror. I am not immune. It disappeared down that here hatch where you are coming up from.
Well, I can say I did not see something. It was oddly quiet, actually.
Well, it sure as heck was not quiet up here. The young miss put on quite an impressive shadow play. A real humdinger of an ending.
And Sophia is quietly sobbing.
I have to admit I am not at my best, sir. I feel a little off my equilibrium.
I can safely say the same for Sammy. It appears something has gotten into him. He is almost like pretending that nothing around him exists.
I see.
He walked outside, was screaming for Nora, and then returned like nothing happened.
Well, I think we did somewhat ascertain amongst ourselves, our collective thinking, that she may not have run away.
And Sophia is still very afraid and seems confused, but you are speaking about her mother, so she is going to join in. My mother did run away. I don't know what you mean.
Well, I do apologize. I had, in fact, forgotten that you were here. But your father strikes me as a rather unsympathetic sort.
Yes, that's why she left.
But he was also outside screaming for her. Almost by the sounds of it, that he was expecting her to answer.
She looks confused. She doesn't have an answer for that, but she knows her mother left.
But I do not think that this here play was connected to her mother. The story that it was telling was much older.
That's from my dreams.
And where were you catching these dreams?
What do you mean?
It was very elaborate. It was very connected. Dreams tend to be very not elaborate and not connected.
I have been having strange dreams since before my mother left. They're always the same. I'm not me. Uh, I'm this man, and the play is the story of his life. my mother thought the inn was haunted. She wrote notes about what she thought was haunting the inn, and she thought maybe the dreams had something to do with that. But my mother knew I wanted to do the play, and she thought it was a good idea. She invited some some artists and performers to come to the inn, and well that was what caused the fight that made her leave.
Why did you not go with her?
She left in a panic, but she was going to come back for me.
How old is this inn?
The inn, because the priest had done some research before you came here, is has been around at least since the previous century when it was used as a meeting spot for the society that you are restarting, because one of the former innkeepers also had the site. And so various members of the society would come to the Witch Cat Inn and hold meetings.
This here play you have put on was from, I do believe you said the 1700s during it. So if this inn was haunted by the said ghoulie that revealed itself, if that was the performer that was murdered in your dreams, it's been here a while then. Why is it being so aggrieved now? Why has it not been this level of agitation in the previous years?
She just looks at you and doesn't really have an answer to that. She says, I only know that my mother started saying she thought the inn was haunted at the beginning of the year, and that my father said not to talk about it. He hates, well, anything to do with art and anything to do with the occult. So he said
Do you
don't
know
talk.
why he has such a uncaring disposition towards the arts and the supernatural?
Uh, the the arts, yes. And she sort of looks down. And if you want to learn more about that, please make an empathy roll.
Oh my god. I haven't had a single success yet. He will look at the priest. It might be better coming from you, sir. You are a man of the cloth. Better than me. And he will look at the shadow play. He won't touch it.
Oh,
Uh,
please make a learning roll or investigation, whichever you prefer. Okay, you got one success. That's really all you need.
He will put his arm around her shoulder in a comforting manner. You have nothing to fear, sister. The Lord is with us
My
always.
my father does not like anything to do with art or performance because shortly before my parents were married and I was born, my mother had an affair with an actor. And we had a success on learning/investigation. Okay.
and Dixon is letting the priest finish.
I believe the Lord will forgive her. He forgives most wrongdoings.
She looks at you and just sort of nods. You get the sense in this moment she's a little more worried about everything going on than the Lord's forgiveness. You don't know how religious these people are here, but the two of you, well, and Sophia, but you assume she also hears it. You now hear from downstairs there is some clattering going on. Maybe sounds like furniture being moved, and Alvon recognizes the same sort of muttering he was hearing coming from Sammy.
What is he up to now?
I do not mean this to sound insulting, but this is a rather elaborate piece of machinery that you have constructed. It possibly appears to be beyond what I think you may be capable of. Where did you get the knowledge to put this contraption together?
In my dreams.
I see. Did that strike you as a little odd?
She sort of shrugs and says, I guess, but I didn't mind that. It,
Now, how many times have you put on this play?
only just now.
Yeah, so you did not know that the ghoulie was going to leap forth.
No, I don't know what that was.
It was terrifying, is what that was.
Alvon would like to go check up on Sammy.
You see, in the dining room, Sammy has procured a length of rope from somewhere, which he has tied into a makeshift sort of noose. And he is standing on a table that he has made and is attempting to fashion this noose to a rafter.
Alvon would like to stop him from doing that. He will tackle him. The hell do you think you're doing?
I I need to pay for my sins, he says, but he looks very confused.
And how are you doing that exactly?
I I need to pay. He looks up at the rope he was tying around the rafters.
You confess and seek forgiveness.
He looks at you confused. You get the sense he's not exactly entirely with it at the moment.
Alvon would like to pin him down until Dixon comes down.
Dixon has heard a crashing sound from down below because Alvon has tackled someone to the ground.
Dixon will search upstairs.
What are you searching for upstairs?
He's just searching. He's looking to see if there's marks on the attic walls that look old, since it's
You don't find anything.
possibly the 1700s, so he's going to
You
go
find nothing.
through. When he's done there, he will go downstairs.
You see Alvon has tackled Sammy to the ground. And you see a noose hanging from the ceiling.
I take it that was not your idea, looking at the priest.
No, it was not. Can you please get that rope?
And he walks over, and if it's tied, as in to something, he will untie it.
Sammy is still continuously muttering that he needs to pay for his sins.
And he will squat down and look at the priest on eye level. I fully admit, sir, that I do not have the understanding of the teachings as you do. But is not suicide a sin? As in one of the unforgivable ones?
Of the Catholic Church, yes.
I see.
So I do not see why that is his solution.
It does seem a tad extreme, doesn't it? I have your rope. What did you want me to do with it? Or was it merely just that he could not have access to it?
Like you to tie him up so I do not have to pin him down.
That makes a level of sense. And Dixon will try to truss him up.
Okay, you can do so. He's not exactly trying to escape from you. He is simply continuously, as if in a daze, saying that he has committed a crime and needs to pay for his sins.
What crime do you think it is he is wanting to pay for? Do you think it is the mother? Or is he somehow taking or having the blame of the playwright who was killed some time ago that had nothing to do with this individual that I'm aware of?
I could not tell you. I have not heard the play, but I'm inclined to believe it is most likely related to her mother.
Well, it was from the 1700s, possibly after the French Revolution. Quite elaborate the play was. The playwright seemed to have been trapped in some form of agreement, and in the end led to their demise in a rather unfortunate and somewhat graphic manner, of which, if that spirit is to be believed, is rather unhappy with the outcome of the situation.
And where would the fun be in that?
Well, I think the actor in question did not find much fun in that at all. Hold him up and tied him to a chair.
What crime have you committed that is so unforgivable that this is the only solution?
He looks the most confused he has looked so far and says, I don't know.
The priest will now look very confused.
And he sort of gives a few token struggles against the ropes, but then when it becomes quite clear he is not going to be able to go anywhere, he stops and he falls asleep.
Well, what do you make of that?
I don't even know. Vaughn would like to go back to the table that they were seated at before and finish his wine.
So I would recommend resting for a scene, which you could do so sitting at this table while Alvon finishes his wine. You can go over stuff if you want. You could heal 2 conditions.
Dixon will walk over to the bar and look for some strong liquor, vodka, whiskey, rum. He will take one and a couple of glasses, and he will come back and sit and pour 2 glasses, which he will drink to calm his nerves through liquid courage.
He's drinking both glasses? Or
He's drinking both glasses.
okay.
One
I thought
after the
one
other?
might be for the priest.
Yep. Yep. Well, he had his wine.
uh,
We have 2 things to consider. Either he was being somewhat possessed by the ghost of the past, of which case the sins he's referring to may not be his own, or he's compelled to put forward his sins in relation to his ex-wife. Now, the daughter did say that the ex-wife did in fact keep notes, that they were in her room, as in the mother's room. I would find it difficult to believe that they would still be there at this time, considering how much animosity the innkeeper here, Mr. Sammy, has towards everything that she was involved in.
You said there was a creature that went downstairs?
Indeed, dark, large, teeth, terror.
Perhaps the beast possessed him.
Which, if it did, then the crimes he may have been alluding to were those that had been committed to the beast in the last century, holding a long grudge. There was some feeling that this place had been haunted for some time, but it had only been manifesting itself in a far more recent period of time, which I'm finding a little bit difficult to comprehend why the creature was fine before and not now.
My presumption is something happened recently, perhaps similar to the circumstances of the past.
That's not a bad line of thought, sir.
Wisdom comes with age.
All right. And I will say that over the course of your conversation and a few drinks, Dixon is able to slightly calm his nerves, so you can remove 2 conditions that you were suffering from. Which I think leaves you with 1, but hey, it's better than 3. So,
Although I
um,
feel the chance of success is somewhat remote, I'm going to see if I can find those notes. I am assuming, as the lady in question has left some time previous, that the impropriety of going through her room may be more reduced now than before.
I have no objections.
Well, let us make sure that this here individual will not be able to untie himself. Dixon will look for paper and a quill or
okay.
pen or whatever is.
You can find some if you need it.
He will write, trying to kill myself, don't untie, and come over and put the note on him in case anyone wakes up. He doesn't know if that's gonna when that's gonna
Okay,
happen.
okay. All right. He does not respond to this at all. He is fast asleep.
He will pat him on the top of his head and he will go up. He assumes it's upstairs and start to see if he can find the room in question.
Okay, and as you head upstairs, you see Sophia coming down from the attic. Presumably, she's not really wishing to stay up there anymore after the whole frightening ghost, whatever it was, emerged from her theater, and she is heading downstairs.
Well, as he sees her, he will stop and say, "This will speed up the issue exponentially if you can show me which one was your mother's room, and B, if you could locate the notes you said she kept."
She looks at you and says, I know which room it is, but I can't get in. It's been locked ever since she left. My father has the key. I suppose you could ask him for it.
Indeed, I can do that.
Speaking
And
of your father, please do not untie him.
what?
He is not in a very sane state of mind and wishes to end himself.
I don't understand.
Just do not untie him.
All right. She indicates one of the rooms that she says is her mother's, and she's going to, rather than go downstairs because she's now alarmed, she didn't see everyone fall asleep, but just what you've said is sort of causing her some concern. She's going to go into her own room rather than heading down to the dining room.
And Dixon will go downstairs and look for the keys. He will check the innkeeper first, and if not, he will look behind the bar.
There is a ring of keys on the innkeeper's belt.
He will take them. "Do you mind if I take these, sir?" "Why, thank you for not protesting." And he will take them and head upstairs. He will start using the keys. Any that might be. Obviously, if there's little keys and it's a big lock, he's not going to do that, but otherwise, he will just start working through the keys.
Fair enough. And after trying a couple, you are able to gain access to the room. And it seems that what Sophia told you is true. Clearly, no one has been in this room for quite some time. It is filled with dust and contains very few pieces of furniture. There is a bed, a desk, a closet in which hangs some clothes, and a bookcase. And now, I need someone to roll a d2, if you please.
2.
Oh, would you look at that? It's Dixon. Okay. You need to make an observation check, and I'm gonna make a different check, and we're gonna see who wins.
And Dixon stands there, almost like he's lost in thought, but it seems a little bit more intense than that. Father, I have a clear recollection of a body of a man, unable to find rest, as dead as a dry leaf, but buried in unconsecrated ground. I don't fully understand what that means. They did talk about this in the shadow play that the daughter Sophia put on. I have a strong impression that the main spirit of the place is the murdered actor.
But you said the play took place in France, correct?
I'm not entirely sure. He fled from France with the revolution. It was not a particularly great place if they felt that you were nobility for sure, but quite possibly anyone of wealth, which the actor may or may not have been. The play suggested he returned home somewhere up here, where an offer of help was not as helpful as the offer had made out, and ended in his demise. If the play was anything to go by, the actual murder was brutal, and he has been buried somewhere. By the sounds of it, I would say not so much a grave as disposed of.
Hmm.
I do not know if the murder took place in this here structure or not.
It's just, I would assume for him to haunt, he would have to be nearby.
That was my feeling. It would make some form of sense.
Vaughn would like to look around.
There are not many things that you can search. There's a bed. It is unmade. It honestly seems like nobody has touched this room since Nora left. A desk, a closet, and a bookcase. What do you want to have a look at?
The bookcase.
The bookcase. Okay. The bookcase has a lot of books on occult subjects, actually. More than you would expect just an innkeeper's wife to have, perhaps. You have been told by Jonathan, Sammy's friend, and a little bit by Sophia that this is something she had an interest in. But still, her collection is fairly impressive for a small village's innkeeper's wife.
Was there any record of her names in the membership log thing?
Of the society, no.
Society, that's what
You did not see her name there.
Is the name of this inn always the same?
To my knowledge, yes. The logs refer to it as the Witch Cat Inn, but it's not uncommon for people to call the inn by its keep.
And what was that?
I do not know the previous one per se, but the Society's notes have it as period.
The shadow play did say you summoned me to Peary's Inn and made me a villainous proposition, which I did so decline.
So he must have been buried nearby.
I think that may be entirely possible. It mentioned a man called Albert, but I don't know exactly how important that might be. I am still puzzled by the name Oscar. He was a former member of the society, but his name is also on the flyer. I am unable to connect those two dots.
Perhaps Oscar is the name of our performer.
Who was also then a member of the society.
Interesting.
When I was doing some cursory looking up of the society, there was a Rendenhelm and a Rendenhelm. Did you find any information on him in your travels? What does the A stand for? Could that have been an Albert?
If our performer is perhaps a former society member, very well could be.
Albert, if that was his name, was involved with the society at this here location. Motive does seem to be, though somewhat missing. I do understand from the play that he said he made him a villainous proposition that he'd so declined, but it does not say what that proposition was. But after he declined, he was murdered.
But why? What was that deal?
Was it out of necessity to keep silence, or did Radenhelm take some form of perverse joy in the murder? The body has to be close, although if unconsecrated ground can be anywhere that is not blessed, that could be a lot of area to cover, though. Even if it was in the immediate vicinity, it would be, by now, almost impossible to find. Does this place have a cellar, do you think?
I don't know, but there was a broken greenhouse in the back.
Could well be worth a look. Dixon is going to have a look for a cellar first, just to see.
I would go to the closet now.
There are some clothes hanging there, rather moth-eaten by this point. Nothing of particular interest.
And I will check the drawer.
Drawer?
Nightstand, what was the other one?
So there's bed, there's cupboard or closet, desk, and bookcase.
Desk. That's what I was thinking of, the desk.
Desk, wonderful. You do find a diary. And it is, from flipping through it, you can tell, written by Nora. And it's split into every entry is dated, but you kind of only flip through to the beginning of the year, as that's when everyone has mentioned to you that things started becoming strange, that Nora had mentioned. Thinking the inn might be haunted, that the inn itself started falling apart, and nothing Sammy did could sort of maintain it. So we begin with January 15th. I saw it again last night, as I was on my way to empty the Widow Rutger's chamber pot. The candle in my hand went out. Standing still in the dark corridor on the second floor, I could hear the floorboards move. Someone was walking toward me. I whispered my husband's name, and an unknown voice responded with a word I couldn't understand. The hairs on my arm stood up, and the blood throbbed in my veins. Finally, I dropped the pot and ran downstairs. My footsteps woke several of the guests. I had to spend more than an hour on my knees scrubbing the stench of Rutger's excrement off the floorboards. Sammy was angry. I didn't tell him I'd seen a ghost. It would be adding fuel to the fire. The next entry is January 17th. Do I really have myself to blame? I know what I did to Sammy, but that was almost 20 years ago. He gets so different when he's angry, and I go mute with fear whilst he demands answers. Perhaps I should know better than to upset him? But all I did was suggest that the sudden falling apart of the inn might have occult causes. I definitely shouldn't have mentioned the ghost. Now I won't be able to show myself to the guests for a week. The bruises around my neck can be concealed with a collar, and no one can see the pain in my chest and stomach, but my left eye is purple like a plum, and my nose is swollen. I fear for Sophia. She is so much like me, and I'd like to tell her everything, but I'm afraid of what Sammy would say. He wants to eradicate all things artistic and sublime from his daughter's body, that which came from me. and then nothing till January 31st. I mentioned my nightmares to Sophia, and it turned out she's been having the same dreams. A man being killed, the murderer sneaking up behind him and cutting his throat with a knife. The body is buried in unconsecrated ground, and suddenly it is my body in the grave. I've been buried alive and can't get out. All I want is revenge or peace in death. I wake with a scream. February 7th. The fourth time I saw him, I understood what he was whispering. It's not a word, but a name. Puri. After spending several days pondering the matter, to Sammy's great annoyance, I remembered where I'd heard that name. Sammy's grandfather, who used to run this inn, was named Puri Harjula. There are lots of old letters in the attic. Among them, I found a stack of messages, all signed with Puri's name, written in code and addressed to someone in Uppsala. The code was easily deciphered, and now I've shut myself away in my room all morning, reading Puri's letters. Sammy is furious that I've neglected my duties. He is banging the kitchen walls and throwing saucepans against the floor. Or Inguli. February 8th. I now know who the dead man is. Puri writes of his guilt and feelings of remorse over a murder he committed. He killed a man named Oscar Hjort by slitting his throat. This happened during a meeting with 3 people from Uppsala. One of them was named Albert. Oscar was unwilling to cooperate, but what he was meant to do I am unsure of. They buried his body somewhere in our garden. Puri says that, instead of having a priest consecrate the ground, they desecrated his body with magic. He fears that he has damned the inn and condemned himself to hell. Sophia has been quiet and withdrawn for some time now. I sat down to talk with her, and she told me that she dreams of setting up a theater. She wants to put on shows here at the Witch Cat. I think it's a brilliant idea. I have sent an invitation to the Troll Dreams theater troupe, mostly to attract customers, but also to inspire Sophia. They will pass through here in early April. This time I won't let Sammy get his way. March 19th. Sammy saw the letter from the theater director, and as I'm writing this, I have hid in the stable like a naughty child. He hit me with the fireplace poker. Everything went black, and I woke up on the floor. I lost the feeling in the fingers of my left hand, and they are still numb. Blood, saliva, snot, and tears are running down my face, so I need to keep this paper away from my body to avoid staining it. I'm so scared. April 3rd. If I stay here, he'll kill me. Tonight I'm packing my things and I'm taking Puri's letters with me. I'll show them to Sophia when I come for her. Perhaps we will return to the Witch Cat one day, when Sammy has died or come to his senses. Then we can go looking for ghosts together. And the diary ends.
Well, that answered a lot of our questions.
I do not think this building has a cellar.
I believe you would like to read this.
Dunk, 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 dunk,
He's
dunk,
coming
dunk.
back up. Okay.
Yeah. You found the notes then?
Yes, and it appears Pyrie was the murderer. Apparently, Oscar was at some meeting with Albert and Pyrie, and he was murdered. Apparently, he is buried in the garden.
Well, your greenhouse theory may well be true then, sir.
I would like to go outside and let's try to find this dead body.
He watches the priest leave. Where are you going?
Oh, there is a body that is quite angry, is there not?
I don't know if there was a body as such, but I certainly saw teeth and claws and terror. There was certainly a spirit of some description.
Perhaps I can put them at rest.
Right. Good idea if possible.
Though I do not know what to do about Sammy.
Well, one problem at a time. We need to find a spade, I assume, so that we can try to find this body, and then you've got a plan, I guess. From there, I can always use it to hit Sammy on the head with.
As much as I wish you would, that would not end well for you. For the Lord would not wish that's how we deal with our problems.
Well, Sammy doesn't have to know that.
You Americans are interesting.
We're a practical people. So, you're thinking the greenhouse?
It's the only spot that really stood out. If no body, I would assume there would be a shovel.
Dixon will look for a shovel and go to the greenhouse.
You are able to find a shovel. There's basically a little tool shed out back. You assume it's filled with the things Sammy has been using to desperately try and keep this crumbling inn together. You look at the greenhouse, it is entirely collapsed. If you wished to try to excavate any ground beneath it, you would first have to move a lot of stone and wood and all kinds of debris. You think it would take you weeks?
I'm hoping you have another idea.
Uh, I will search the ground for any sign of disturbed soil.
Okay, you don't come across disturbed soil, and that's not really a surprise, because if there was a body buried anywhere, it certainly would not be a fresh grave, but you do find a trap door in the ground.
I found something.
And what might that be?
It appears they do have some sort of cellar.
I knew it.
You have found what looks like the entrance to a root cellar of sorts.
Yvonne would like to open it up.
Hey. And opening the door, you see into a huge, dark cave that must be bigger than the original root cellar by a great deal. There are shelves of food, but it all seems to be infested with maggots. A strong wind is blowing from somewhere, and you can hear fragments of whispers echoing off the stone walls. Very disjointed, but you can pick out things like Albert, my love, my right to decline. You were everything to me. You let Puri kill me, and I will. Katya, Hilma, my name was. Danced in Paris. And then the whispers stop. And you see standing before you a man. He is young, his clothes expensive, and his eyes glittering with love. He looks to one side of the cavern, seeming to see someone or something you can't. Then a gash appears on his throat, gushing blood, and he collapses. His mouth opens and shuts in an attempt to speak or scream, but he can only make a choking, gurgling sound. Then, instantly, his body begins to decay and is covered in maggots. Then, that image fades, and you can see what you now believe to be a revenant glaring at you from the shadows.
I
What
would
would you
say do
like to
your
do?
thing, father.
I can't just concentrate. I can't just consecrate the ground. I need time. These things are angry, but they are not unreasonable.
Well, then I would suggest you reason with it. You are the holy, it is the unholy.
I am a servant of the Lord, and I wish no harm upon you. I simply wish to put you at rest.
The thing glares at you and steps closer and says, "And why should I believe that? Why would you want to put me to rest?"
For I am a servant of the Lord, and I should shine with forgiveness and love. Do you wish to be here for all eternity, miserable and angry?
I wish someone to understand.
We do. You were murdered. You're betrayed.
Yes. By you.
How?
You. The society. Albert, Katya, Hilma, you.
We are not the same society. We have recently just learned about them.
Recently. The thing looks confused.
You have been dead for years.
No.
Yes.
No. I have been dead. I don't know. Weeks, months, not
Can a family ascend 2 generations in weeks?
family.
The man who runs the place is not the same.
Yes, he. Puri, the traitor.
Here he is dead. He's been dead for ages.
And the creature shakes its head, is clearly disorientated. Anger, yes, but you're getting more confusion at this point.
The current owner's a man called Sammy, with a daughter, Sophia. The old order is gone. The society was the last of an old woman dying in a hospital. It's a new
Yes,
century now, sir.
the society was dying. Yes, Albert, Hilma, Katya, they were reforming it. They had ideas. They wanted my help.
They are dust. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. They're gone.
But what they've done is not.
Well,
You.
that's what we're trying to fix, as much as is humanly possible.
No, you don't understand. Oh, maybe you can put my soul to rest, consecrate the ground. I don't know, but you can't undo what they did. The killing me was. They wanted my help for a ritual. I refused, and they killed me and used my body for their ritual anyway. And it. Well, I don't know what woke me. You say it has been years, but what they did has started. If they are dead, they are dead, but what they have started will continue.
And do you wish to see what they have started to go through?
You don't understand. It is too late for that. Banish me, put me to rest, do what you will. That changes nothing. Their ritual was a success.
If it is as dire as you're seeing, do you wish to see that?
I won't see it one way or another, but you will. You have my apologies. And he steps back into the shadows. And a few moments after that, the wind that has been emanating from somewhere stills, and you no longer have the sense that you are being actively watched, although you know that this spirit will remain here until actually dealt with. But it is not breathing down your neck anymore.
I would like to continue on looking for the body.
Okay, you have a pretty good sense of where it might be, considering the spot you saw the vision or after image or whatever it was of Oscar fall and die. There are bloodstains on the earth.
I wish to attempt to consecrate the ground.
You may do so. You are a priest. You have that ability, and you don't have to. I'm not gonna say go look up a ritual to consecrate ground and do it perfectly accurately. You may simply say you do it. All right, and you know it will take you some time, not hours, not forever. It isn't the sort of thing you could do to stop a creature bearing down on you in seconds, but you now have the time, you believe, to consecrate the ground, and so you are able to.
May the light guide this man to the Lord, and may the Lord forgive his sins. May he rest in peace and live on.
All right, so you are able to consecrate the ground and rebury the body. And while you're doing so, the wind that had stilled, giving you time to locate and deal with the body, picked up again as you performed your ritual to consecrate the ground. It grew louder, and as you actually reburied the body, it came to a peak, and you were fairly certain you could hear the voice of Oscar, although faintly in the wind. And then once the body was completely reburied, the wind stopped. It is still night, it is still pouring rain outside, but something you notice immediately upon exiting the root cellar is that it seems brighter inside the inn, as though the lanterns and fire had perhaps resumed their original level of brightness and hopefully warmth, as you are slightly chilled by rain and your time spent in a root cellar.
Ravon will go behind the bar and grab a bottle of wine and sit at the original table.
All right, and everyone is awake now and quite confused, especially at Sammy, who is tied to a chair with a note on him. You see some of them sort of puzzling over that. No one has untied him. He doesn't seem to be demanding that anyone do so. He is sort of just sitting looking very confused. Sophia is also downstairs. You assume she heard people resume talking and has come to see what was going on. And the detective who originally invited you here looks up as you enter.
Dixon will come in with his shovel and will pull up a chair and sit in front of Sammy.
And the people that were sort of looking at him, the other priest, not Alvon, and the waiter were kind of consulting over this letter. They back up when you do so.
You were going to hang yourself for your sins. And what sins were those?
I I didn't know.
Didn't know what?
what what it was. It was something, a, a crime, killing someone maybe.
Do you have the diary, Father?
He will wave the book.
And he reaches out for it.
We'll hand it to him.
This is interesting reading, folks. This is from his ex-wife. And he flicks through it. Now I won't be able to show myself to the guests for a week. The bruises around my neck can be concealed with a collar, and no one can see the pain in my chest and stomach. But my left eye is purple like a plum, and my nose is swollen, and I fear for Sophia.
There are mixed responses from those gathered around you. Specifically, note that Jonathan does not look surprised, although he also doesn't look like this is a normal or good thing. Sophia, clearly not surprised and looking very saddened. The other priest, not Alphon, but Father Niels, who you had spoken to before, is looking concerned. And the other waiter seems pretty baffled by the whole thing. You don't get the sense he had any knowledge. He may have even been hired on since Nora left. You never really spoke to him. And Sammy is hanging his head. You don't know if he's mainly ashamed of what you're reading, still confused about what went on, if he's only upset because you're reading it in front of everyone. You don't get a good sense, but he's not happy. Know that much.
Are you a religious man, Sammy?
No. I am a man of science.
So then what's the logic behind beating your wife? What's the science in that?
He shakes his head and does not have an answer.
Oh, just in case you were of any misunderstanding, there's quite a lot of this in this book. This was not a one-time affair. Not that that would be an excuse, sir.
And there's some sort of murmuring from various people. The priest is speaking with the waiter, maybe trying to ascertain if he knows anything about this. The cook has come out of the kitchen and is talking to Sophia. It looks like she's maybe trying to comfort her. You hadn't seen the cook before. Presumably, she fell asleep in the kitchen. And Jonathan is just looking pretty downcast, and I think that's here right now.
You're a man of science, sir, you said. Can you explain to me the science that would accumulate from something hard and flat, much like a shovel, coming into contact with something shaped like an egg, similar to your head?
His eyes remain firmly on the floor, and he does not look at you.
Because that's an experiment I am interested to conduct at this moment. With the good father's blessing, I intend to give this diary to the local constabulary. The injuries that she describes in this volume are extensive and could quite possibly have been long lasting. You may, sir, have contributed to her death. I am suggesting to them that they should look into that a lot more than they may have.
He continues to hang his head and does not look up at you. He doesn't argue with you. He doesn't really seem to feel he has any options here.
And you're right, sir. If you're thinking you don't have any options, you don't. And he will lean in, though, so that the others don't hear. He says, if you touch Sophia again, I'll kill you.
And he sort of flinches and then continues his I'm staring at the ground and not saying anything thing.
He hands the diary back to the priest who was in possession and charge of it. He will then go over and rewrite an address on the piece of paper and come over, fold it, and give it to Sophia.
Who takes it, opens it, and then looks up at you.
This is where we reside. An impressive castle, if I do say so myself. If you require assistance, we have an excellent cleaner who will be able to let you in and make you comfortable until one of us is available.
She nods. She's looking fairly stunned by everything that is going on. She's not really protesting anything that you've said about her father. She is being comforted by the cook who looks at you and says, if her father is to be arrested, which he probably should be, if you want my opinion, she can stay with me.
Do you have any objections to that, young miss?
Sophia looks up at the cook, looks back at you, shakes her head. I can stay with Ingoli. I can.
Very well then. And he will pick up his shovel and turn around to the father. And as he does so, the back of the shovel will smack Sammy on the back of the head. If there's nothing else you need to do here, Father, I am somewhat done with this place. The air here is rancid.
Perhaps you think I'm a fool for believing in the Lord, but I can confidently say you are evidence that there is a devil. And the priest will follow you out.
And right as you're about to leave the inn, Olaus Clint, the detective who invited you here, will stop you and say, "So what was it?"
Revenant,
Yes, sir. Big teeth, claws, and terror. Murdered some time ago.
Interesting.
A
How
century
long?
before, in fact.
Hmm. Curious. It only showed its face this year.
Well, there was a ritual that the previous society of that time, Piri at the time, had done something unfortunate that he said was coming to pass.
How very interesting. You don't happen to know any more about that, do you?
Regrettably, not. The Revenant was not particularly knowledgeable of such things on the grounds that it was killed before.
Certainly, certainly. If you do discover more, and he pulls a card out of his pocket and hands it to you, I would be fascinated to hear.
We'll keep that in mind, sir.
And, of course, if you ever need any assistance, I regrettably was not much help in this scenario, but I would be happy to try and pull my weight a bit more in any other strange situations you may run across.
I'm sure.
And he will bid you adieu.
And when he's gone, I'm going to look at the father and say, I think we're going to have to kill him at some point.
interest. Do I need to fear that one day you will have to end me?
Well, I don't think so. You see, I trust you, sir. You give off an air of steadfast holiness. I'm not exactly sure why. Possibly because you're a priest. He, however, reminded me of a used cart salesman.
Used cart salesman.
Yep.
There was something about the gleam in his eye, like when a salesman's about to make that sale to someone at an exorbitant price, well outside of what it should be. Men like that should not be trusted.